Ernesto Rafael Guevara de la Cerda was born into a very wealthy farming family and had a childhood surrounded by luxury. He grew up in a house with a huge garden and lived next to a famous hotel called Hotel Sierras, which had a luxurious pool where he could relax and play. When he turned 19, Ernesto decided to study medicine at the University of Buenos Aires in Argentina. During his studies, he dreamed of exploring all of South America. To fulfill this dream, he and his friend Alberto Granados, who was also studying at the university, decided to embark on a great adventure. Before continuing with the video, remember to leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to receive notifications of new videos. That way, you won't miss any new content. In 1952, the two left Buenos Aires on a special 500cc motorcycle, which Ernesto affectionately called La Poderosa, the Mighty One. With this bike, they traveled through many countries in South America. This journey transformed the way Ernesto saw the world. Before, he lived a comfortable life, but now he witnessed the reality of the poorest people. He saw up close the misery, hunger, and diseases that affected many regions. When he returned to finish his medical studies in 1953, his worldview had changed completely. Shortly after, Ernesto went to Guatemala, where he had his first exposure to important political issues. The president of Guatemala, Jacobo Arbenz, was redistributing land to peasants, taking it away from large American companies. This angered the United States, which supported a coup to oust Arbenz, using the CIA, the American intelligence agency. Ernesto tried to organize a group to resist the coup, but failed. Unsuccessful, he had to return to Argentina, but this experience made him understand that, in his view, the United States and the capitalist system were the main enemies of Latin America. In Guatemala, Guevara met his first wife, Hilda Gadea, a woman who had a great influence on his life. She introduced him to Raúl Castro, who was living in exile in Mexico after unsuccessfully trying to overthrow the Cuban government. Raúl and his brother, Fidel Castro, were planning a new revolution attempt to oust dictator Fulgencio Batista. Batista had seized control of Cuba in 1952 through a military coup and established an authoritarian government, where many people were persecuted and killed. Additionally, Batista suspended elections and annulled the country's constitution, marking his regime with oppression. In 1956, Che Guevara, Fidel, Raúl, and 79 other revolutionaries set sail from Mexico on a small boat called Granma, aiming to overthrow Batista's government and restore freedom and democracy in Cuba. The journey was long and dangerous, and when they finally arrived on the island of Cuba, they were attacked by Batista's military forces. Many revolutionaries were killed or captured shortly after landing, but those who survived, including Che and the Castro brothers, fled to the Sierra Maestra Mountains in the south of the country. In the mountains, the group began to reorganize and gain support from the Cuban people. It was there, hidden, and carefully planning their movements, that the revolutionaries started to form the army that would later overthrow Batista's dictatorship and change Cuba's future. Che Guevara played a crucial role in the revolution. He took on the responsibility of training the guerrillas, who initially had no military experience, transforming them into skilled and combat-ready fighters. But his work didn't stop there. Che also organized various structures to help the revolutionaries survive in the mountains. He set up a field hospital to treat the wounded, a tailor shop to repair the fighters' clothes, a bakery to ensure they had food, and even a radio station to maintain contact with the peasants and gain support from the population. These actions by Guevara were fundamental in strengthening the revolutionary movement, which in the following years achieved important military victories. One of the most well-known battles was the Battle of Santa Clara. In this fight, the revolutionaries were outnumbered, with only one fighter for every 10 soldiers in Batista's army. Even so, they managed to win. This victory was decisive, leading Batista to flee Cuba, allowing the revolutionaries to march victoriously to Havana in January 1959. With Batista's fall, Che Guevara, Fidel Castro, and their allies opened a new chapter in Cuba's history, bringing profound changes to the country. However, the revolution also revealed Guevara's more rigid and severe side. In 1957, during the intense days in the Sierra Maestra Mountains, he wrote a letter to his wife, Hilda, describing how the tension affected the fighters. To deal with insubordination and discouragement among the guerrillas, revolutionary tribunals were established to judge anyone suspected of going against the revolution. The death penalty was applied in such cases. One example was the case of Eutimio Guerra, a guerrilla accused of being an informant informant for the army. Although there was insufficient evidence to convict him, Che Guevara ignored the tribunal's decision and ordered Eutimio's execution, showing how ruthless he could be in defending the revolution. Ernesto Che Guevara recorded one of the darkest moments of his journey as a revolutionary in his diary, writing, "I solved the problem with a .32 caliber pistol shot to the right side of the head. This was not an isolated act. During the struggle in the Sierra Maestra Mountains, under Guevara's command, executions of members of the revolutionary group were common." He reported personally executing 14 people. Things worsened after the revolutionaries took power in 1959. The promise to restore democracy in Cuba was never fulfilled, and Batista's dictatorship was replaced by a new authoritarian regime, now led by Guevara and his comrades. After the revolution's victory, the revolutionary tribunals continued to operate, but now Guevara had control over the entire island. He was appointed commander of La Cabaña Fortress, a feared place where many people considered enemies of the new government were executed. With this power in hand, Che Guevara decided who lived and who died, often without needing concrete proof. There are reports that he believed the firing squad served as a sort of lesson, a way to intimidate any opposition. Che Guevara's cruelty was not limited to executions. Witnesses report that he made the families of the victims pass by the execution site, where the ground was still stained with the fresh blood of the dead, when they went to retrieve the bodies of their loved ones. This behavior earned him the nickname Butcher of 1959. It is estimated that he ordered the execution of 175 people alone at La Cabaña Fortress. If we add the deaths during his guerrilla campaign and those he ordered afterward, it is estimated that Guevara was responsible for between 600 and 1,500 deaths. In 1964, Che Guevara delivered a powerful speech at the UN General Assembly, in which he bluntly admitted, "Yes, we executed." This statement was an open confession of his actions during the Cuban Revolution and his role in the executions that took place both during the fighting and after the revolutionaries' victory. Guevara firmly believed that to ensure the success of the revolution, drastic and violent measures were necessary. This uncompromising stance reflected his view that the fight against imperialism and capitalism justified extreme actions. After consolidating his role in Cuba, Guevara decided to expand his revolutionary ideas to other countries in Latin America, with the dream of seeing the entire region liberated from what he considered capitalist oppression. In 1965, he left Cuba, where he had become an influential figure, and set off for new international missions, seeking to foster revolutions in different places. First, he went to the Congo in Africa, where he tried to help a rebel movement. However, this campaign was a failure, as he underestimated the local challenges and the political complexity of the country. After his failure in the Congo, Guevara turned his attention to Bolivia, believing that the country would be the ideal starting point for a revolution that would spread throughout Latin America. He began organizing guerrillas and planning strategies, but from the beginning, he realized that the conditions were unfavorable. Local support was weak, Bolivia's geographical conditions were extremely challenging, and the Bolivian army, with the help of the United States and the CIA, was determined to thwart his revolution. In his diary, Guevara wrote about his growing doubts, acknowledging that the chances of success were slim and that he probably would not leave Bolivia alive. Indeed, on October 8, 1967, Che Guevara was captured by Bolivian army soldiers after an ambush. Exhausted and lacking the resources he needed to continue fighting, he was taken to a small school in the village of La Higuera. The next day, Bolivian President René Barrientos ordered Che's execution, fearing that a public trial would turn the guerrilla into a revolutionary martyr. On October 9, 1967, Guevara was killed by an army sergeant with close-range gunfire. After his death, Che's body was publicly displayed to ensure that no one doubted his execution. However, his death only increased the myth surrounding his figure. Although his revolutionary project in Bolivia failed, his image transformed into something greater than himself. The iconic photo of Che, with his intense gaze and beret with a star, taken by Alberto Corda, became immortalized and turned into a global symbol of rebellion and resistance to the system. especially among young people seeking political and social change. Che Guevara's legacy is full of contradictions. For many, he is seen as a hero who fought against injustice, an idealistic figure who tried in his own way to change the world. For others, he is remembered for his brutality and the violent methods he used to impose his beliefs. While his image continues to be emblazoned on t-shirts and posters, it is important to remember that behind the icon was a complex man whose actions and decisions still spark intense debates about his true historical legacy. If you know someone who still has a romanticized view of Che Guevara, sharing this information can help provide a more complete and critical perspective on his history, showing that his revolutionary journey was marked by both ideals and dark, controversial acts. If you enjoyed the story and want to support the channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. You can also become a member to further encourage the content. See you next time.